kids and money is so complicated now. I mean, it's so different than it used to be. Because in the old days, like 15 years ago and prior, how did kids get money? They got this thing called cash. And you had so much cash, it would dwindle right before your eyes. And then if you were not good at being a good steward of that cash, it would vanish, right? And if you were good with it, you would build it over time. But today, the fact that any of us can take a watch and pay for something, zap, or a phone, pay for it, or pull out plastic or whatever, this erosion of the physicality of money has made it much more difficult to teach kids the whole idea of spending versus saving and seeing the direct logical consequences. When somebody does tap to pay with a watch or a phone, you don't feel it. You don't see that there's a dwindling resource there. And so this has become a much harder challenge to teach the idea of saving versus spending to a young child all the way through high school and then into young adulthood. And so I have been reluctantly approaching this in a new way. And this has been hard for me because I've always felt, and if you've been a long-time listener, you know that how is it that I try to get somebody who has a real spending problem to break that spending problem? I tell them to go to cash, not a debit card, to cash. And I've found in years past, talking with couples who've had an uncontrollable spending problem, a never-ending spending problem, that when they go to cash, that things change, that it does, in fact, this is going to sound touchy-feely, but it changes their relationship with money, and their spending goes down a lot. The problem is that kids are growing up in an era where we talked the other day about there are so many places that won't even take cash. You have to pay electronically or with plastic. And so our kids are growing up in an era where they're being wired that money is a bottomless, endless supply, which it's not. So something Krista and I have debated over the years are these spending cards that tie in directly with parental controls. And usually they have pretty substantial fees that you have to pay, but then as a parent, you can control where the money is spent, how much money is spent. You get notified, depends on how much of a helicopter parent you are. You can get continuous notices every time the payment card is used. And that has been the marketplace answer to this with fees attached. Well, now for people who have accounts with Chase, and Chase is using this as a way to capture more accounts and to try to get kids loyal to Chase from a very young age. And then the thinking is that when a kid establishes his or her first banking arrangement or connection or credit union arrangement, that they stay with that for decades. My wife got her first credit card from a credit union 30 some odd years ago, maybe longer than that. And it's not really that good a card, but she has stayed loyal to it all through the years because they were the first ones that would give her a card. And so I think that's probably part of what's behind the new Chase product that is called First. And so First has parental controls. As best I could tell looking at the terms for it, it does not include the ability to blacklist certain retail categories so that a kid can't spend any money in those. But you as a parent can have whatever level of notifications you want on what your kid is spending. And it gives you the ability to go over with your kid and teach when your child is like getting out of control with spending, because you know you can sit down, you can talk about it. So this is a potential alternative. The best part is it's free, but you have to be a Chase customer in order to use it. So it is another potential tool in the toolbox in a much more difficult era to teach your kids about spending.